Hi everyone, it's December 7th, 2024, and this is my video journal of my recovery from watching my little brother with Down syndrome be locked up by the BC New Democratic Party for 588 days after I complained about a power of attorney that they created to give him the COVID-19 shot. They named my elderly 82-year-old nun sister 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario as his representative. And when I complained to the police about this fraudulent and forged document, they terminated my visits with him. So I was before the Court of Appeal in British Columbia on February 6th of this year, just to bring you up to date, and on March 28th, the Court of Appeal judges dismissed my application or my appeal of the appointment of the nun as my brother's guardian. He had a stroke 13 days later and was dead 26 days later. So this is a system that I've worked in almost my whole adult life. I graduated from law school in 1991. I became a lawyer in 1992. I was a federal prosecutor for 3 years, and then I was a family lawyer until I had an accident in 2008. So this is a system that I've, heavily invested in, and I know where all the bodies are buried. I know how it's supposed to work, and I know when it's not working properly. And I had faith in the system. That's why I spent all the time and energy and effort. So what I didn't know is that this is important, is that on March 27th of this year, the Oversight Agency for the RCMP, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the RCMP, ordered the Burnaby RCMP to investigate their investigation of the fraudulent and forged representation agreement. I didn't know this, so they wrote me a letter. The officer in charge wrote me a letter on March 27th. And the decision of the Court of Appeal was on March 28th. So the timing is it's critical to understand the timing. So it may be that the Court of Appeal knew that the RCMP had been ordered to reopen the investigation. But I wasn't given the letter from the officer in charge of the Burnaby RCMP telling me they were going to reopen the investigation until April 21 at 6:54 p.m. By that time, my appeal had been dismissed. Paul had had a stroke, and Paul had been in the hospital for almost 10 days. So they hid this letter to me, this March 27th of 2024 letter to me, telling me that they were reopening the investigation. And what my sister's lawyers did during that time is they prepared a huge big application to have me declared a vexatious litigant. So that would declaration would take away the last little bit of my remaining rights to defend myself and to sue them for wrongful death. And so my sister's lawyers knew that the RCMP somebody, I believe, at the RCMP had tipped off my sister's lawyers to the fact they had been ordered to reopen their investigation. So my sister's lawyers prepared this application to have me declared a vexatious litigant. And almost all the litigation that I've dealt with in the last 10 years since my accident has been where I'm on the receiving end. I've been sued for something. So it's taking away my right to defend myself. And what's even more catastrophic and distressing is that They set down the hearing for 5 days starting on November 18th. And the judge who had been assigned to the case suddenly was elevated to the Court of Appeal, so they said he couldn't do it. And a new judge was parachuted in, who was, her last job was as an employee for the Department of Justice where I used to work. And I had made a human rights complaint against the Department of Justice like 30 years ago. But they've got long memories, that Department of Justice. They don't know how to prosecute a case to save their life, but they've got long memories if you challenge them. So this new judge, this woman, Judith Hoffman, is parachuted in. And I had a heart attack in 2016, November 9th of 2016. And I've got high blood pressure, and so I have to be very careful, and I have a medical certificate and a letter from a cardiologist saying I have to limit the emotional distress, and I cannot appear in court for longer than 2 hours. So every judge I've ever appeared before, I mean, I never win, but they always accommodate that medical restriction. But this judge, Judith Hoffman, I went over the first day because I was asking for an adjournment the first day, pending the police investigation of this fraudulent forged power of attorney or representation agreement. This judge just kept on going past 12 o'clock, and I stood up and I said, "Oh, I've got to leave by doctor's orders." And she said, "Oh, can't you just sit in the gallery?" So I'm defending myself from losing my last civil rights on earth. And this judge says to me, "Can't you just sit in the gallery? Risk your health, go against your cardiologist's written advice, and just sit in the gallery." And I just quietly got up and left. And I went the next day and I collected all my materials, and I just went back to drop off written submissions. But she went on for 2 full days after that day. So I've complained to the Canadian Judicial Council. I've complained to the Auditor General of Canada, who's kind of an ombudsperson that you complain to. So really, they don't know when. This is the thing about evil people, is they don't know when to draw the line. So they thought, well, Paul's dead, and that's too bad. But, after a decision, they make this decision that Paul's better in the custody of my evil nun sister 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario, who can't even be bothered to move him to Ontario to be near her. And then he dies in horrible circumstances. I was allowed a 10-minute per day visit with him by the evil nun. And as far as I know, the police are still going through the motions anyways of investigating the fraudulent and forged representation agreement that took away all my brother's rights. And now they're trying to take away my rights. So I appealed. I asked for an adjournment. She said no. So I've got a hearing. I'm sure she made an order that I'm a vexatious litigant. I mean, I don't even need to check, but I will. In my absence, my medically required absence. But, I still have enough faith. Like, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, and the fat lady hasn't sung yet. She had to step over the line just a little bit too far. And putting somebody in a life-threatening situation unnecessarily just to get the results that they want is, I think, a step too far, even for this court system and this government. Well, I know that it is a step too far. So I've complained to conservative members of the legislature, and I don't know whether that's going to be helpful or not, but I'm going back to court on December 16th. I'm going to the Court of Appeal asking for permission to appeal her the judge's decision to go ahead. And you might think, well, this is all a waste of time, or it's boring, or whatever. But I know enough to know that this is important for you. I'll be 70 the day after tomorrow. I'm sorry, 69 the day after tomorrow. And I've had a full life and a very interesting life. But there's a lot of people coming up, and I know what justice is supposed to look like, and this ain't it. I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for the other and elderly men with Down syndrome who are locked up for 588 days. This is never going to happen again. Nobody should ever be subjected to this trauma. Canada's got a lot of problems right now, and I think we should all go to church and pray for Canada. So I'm looking forward to my birthday the day after tomorrow. I'm very lucky. I was the 8th of 9 children. I have to tell this story. My father used to always tell this story on my birthday. We always would tell the story of the circumstances around the person's birth because there's so many kids in my family. My mother had RH factor, and that was like a death sentence back in the mid-50s when I was born. And the only thing they could do was bring on the baby early, because it's the mother's blood. The mother's RH positive, the baby's RH negative, and the mother's blood tries to kill the mother's antibodies try to kill the baby. And my sister, Mary Patricia, before me, died. She was born stillborn. And my father was so worried. And he was in the delivery room or near the delivery room. And when I was born, he said, I looked dead. I was black and floppy and lifeless. And he begged them to try to revive me. So they raced me. There's an underground tunnel in Toronto. I was born in Toronto, although I never lived there. And there's an underground tunnel in Toronto between the women's hospital, where the deliveries are, and children's sick kids hospital. And they raced with me through this underground tunnel and into a special nursery for high-risk babies. And my father said he watched me as they gave me 6 blood transfusions from strangers in Toronto that I'll never know. And he said he watched the pink. I slowly turned pink from the top of my head to the tip of my toes. And when the blood transfusions reached my toes, I started wriggling my toes. And so my dad's nickname for me was Twinkle Toes. Until his dying day at almost 101, he called me Twinkle Toes. So I'm so happy to be alive. I've survived a heart attack. I've got lupus. I've got other medical conditions. And I'm alive, and I have enough wits about me to fight the evil that was perpetrated on my little brother Paul Kierans, so that it never happens again. And I'm going to fight and get damages for this vexatious litigant nonsense. And hopefully somebody's going to prison for what's been done to Paul and I. I think that that's going to happen. Even in Canada, you can go to prison for locking people up and for fraudulent and forged representation agreements over them. So that's where things are now. I love you all. I just noticed that somebody put $20 in my GoFundMe account 2 months ago on October 15th. Thank you so much. So what I'm asking everyone to do is please contribute to all you need to do is click on the link to contribute to the GoFundMe. It's easy, as can be. I've spent every penny I have and every penny I can borrow. I'll be paying back loans to pay for expert reports until October 25th of 2028. But it's worth it. It's going to be worth it when we win. Just believe me, trust in my knowledge of how the system works, that we're going to win. And somebody's going to prison, and I'm going to get damages. I was a prosecutor for 3 years. I've got no compunction about sending someone to prison when they deserve it. And somebody's going to prison for what's been done to me and Paul. So I love you all, and I'm just so thrilled to be celebrating my 69th birthday. It's a privilege that many don't get. My sister, who is 5 years older than me, died at 60. So I've had 9 more years more than she had, and she deserved a lot more. I hope she's having fun up in heaven with my brother Paul. So take care, everybody.